Hello and welcome to this recording on NetApp simulators. I decided to do this recording a while ago just to show you how I do NetApp practicing in my own lab environment. So if I look down below here, I have my desktop PC that has 32 gig of RAM, and I have roughly around 300 gig of storage. And then I have other two other servers, that Dell servers that also have 32 gig of RAM each in them, that I use for different tests and practices, just in my own lab environment for my own personal development. So in this particular demonstration, I'll be showing you how to set up NetApp simulators in a VMware Workstation environment. So we'll be doing a series of hangouts in our study group where we will be going through some of the theory behind NetApp. But I also realized that learning theory without understanding, without having something that you can relate to, can make things difficult. In other words, you're getting knowledge in abstraction, and sometimes it's good to put things together. Sometimes it's beneficial to actually do the practical before you do the theory, because when you're doing the theory, you can relate to it better. But both different sides have their own place. So, as mentioned before, I'll just showing you how to set that up. So right now on my machine, I'm on google.com, just web browser. And if I go on google.com and I search for NetApp downloads, I can see this link here. It says downloads NetApp support, my support.netapp.com/portal/download. Now this could change. I'm recording this on the 22nd of January 2016. So this link could change in the future. But then you go to that location, then you get to this page here. And then right at the top right hand corner, you see a link that says login here. So if I click on this link, it gives me the standard login with your username and password, and then I'm able to log in. But one thing to mention here is you must currently have an email address of a company, or an email address is linked to a company that currently has a contract, something with NetApp, for you to be able to download some of the applications on this page. So here I'm logged in here. So I can go on the downloads and go on the software. And if that loads up quickly, then so download, I'm sure I clicked on software. Yeah, here we go. So hopefully you don't have to click on it twice. So you click on software. Now you can see the different softwares and stuff that you can download depending on your contract with NetApp and stuff like that. But right here it says toolchest contains downloadable tools, web applications, and miscellaneous links, including the data on tap simulator. So that's what I want. I want the data on tap simulator. So I'll click on that. And then you get this page that contains links to all the different versions. So for those who are not familiar with NetApp, again, we'll be doing the theory behind this in our Hangouts, and you really enjoy this. If you're someone who is just getting to start to learn about NetApp, join our Hangouts. You love this. We explain differently than most people will explain. So there are two different versions of the NetApp software called the Data on Tap Simulator. So there's one called the 7 mode, and there's one called the clustered Data on Tap. So the operating system itself is called Data on Tap. So the 7 mode is kind of like the old version of the operating system, while the clustered Data on Tap OS is kind of like the new version. So I can click on, if I click on anything like h.x and go under here, then I can get links to the latest version and even older versions, and you can say clustered on tap. So it gives you two links mainly here. So you have one link for simulate on tap 8.3.2 release candidate 1 for VMware Workstation, VMware Player. So this are for just the VMware Workstation, VMware Player, and VMware Fusion. So the VMware desktop virtualization platforms. And why this other one is for the ESX platform. So simulate on tap 8.3.2 release candidate 1 for VMware ESX. So depending on which virtualization platform you're using, yeah, you select the right one. So I'll be using VMware Workstations. I'll click on this one. And here's another thing that you need to download. So you can download this one, which contains the licenses. Now the reason why this is important is, let me bring up a page. If I go MS Paint. So the reason why that's important, this licenses file, why it's important is because it contains the serial numbers and the licenses that you can use to unlock the feature. So if you can't relate to all these, don't be concerned. When we get to demonstrating them and explaining them, you relate to them more better. So if I bring this up, so basically what we'll have in our lab is we have sort of like a NetApp controller, NetApp filer, whatever you want to call it. You have a node here, and then we'll have another node down here. And what will happen is these two nodes will be connected to one another in a clustered scenario. Now, if you're involved in IT, you understand what I mean by a clustered scenario. It means you're bringing two nodes together to act as one. And the advantage of that is, of course, you get load balancing, you get redundancy. If one of these fails, and the load can be transferred to the other one to take over and carry on the work. Or the other thing is that if this one is under heavy load, part of the load can be distributed to this other node, and that reduces the load. So kind of like share the load and also redundancy in case one of them fails. Yeah. Now, the reason why you need the licenses is because this guy right there, or this node right here, has its own serial number. Let's say 111111. That's not the actual serial number. That's just something I'm using for explanation purposes. So let's say, so the thing is, if you download that, so I go to NetApp's website. So let me minimize this, and I download this one for VMware Workstation. And I'm going to be having two nodes in my lab environment. What happens is the node themselves comes with a serial number already installed. So what will happen is I downloaded this from NetApp. It's got a serial number of 11111. I make a copy of it. So I basically get another node with a serial number of 11111. But what happens is if I try to link them together later, I'll start getting error messages and stuff like that. So what I'll like to do is I'd like to change the serial number of this one to something different so that I won't get error messages in the future. Because otherwise, if you've got two of them having the same serial numbers, you run into issues later. And then the other thing to mention is that the serial numbers are linked with the licenses, again, which we'll explain later when we get there. So where do you get a second serial number from? You can't just make anything up. Well, that second serial number will be included in this file right here. So which I won't be showing you, sorry about that, but it will be included there. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll go to click on download the one for VMware Workstation and then downloads this file. So what I've done is I already downloaded this, and what happens is after downloading it, you can just simply right click and rename it, which I've also done. So you can basically go right click, rename, call it something else. In my own case, I've put them here. So what I just did was I made a copy of it. I called one of them NetApp 1. Actually, I'll just go copy here and paste here. And I'll call one NetApp 1. I'll call the other one NetApp 2. And that's what we'll be using. And actually, like to be sincere, you really don't need to make a copy of that. I'll show you the reason why you don't need to make a copy of that later. So actually, we can get rid of this one. We only need just one. So you download that. The next thing you have to do is open up your VMware Workstation, which I assume you have a license for. VMware Education Student. So I get a license that allows me to evaluate for a lot of this. So I have 290 days left, which is good. So what I can do is I can either go open the virtual machine here, or I can go File, Open, and then I can select the location. So that's the file that I downloaded, and I can dig into the one that I've renamed and select that's the whole VA file that I want to import. And I go open that, and then it says, what do you want to call this virtual machine? I can change the name at this point and just leave the name as it is. Select the location that you want to save this, and then click on import. It's that simple. And this might take a while, so I'll pause the recording and I will be back. Doesn't look like it will take a while actually. So I'll pause this anyway, and I'll come back once it's finished. Okay, so the import completed. And as you can see, now I have a virtual machine here called NetApp 1, because that was the name that I gave to it. And you can see this virtual machine has 5 gig of RAM, so that's heavy. And it's got 2 processors, and then it has these 4 hard drives attached to it. So again, we'll try to explain these and break it down to make it clearer. Because one of the reasons that I also struggled with at the beginning is trying to find the relationship between the real physical NetApp hardware and these NetApp simulators. And believe me, we will be going through that. Maybe not in this video, but we will get there. We'll explain what the link is between them, so that can help you like in your relationship, so you can take what you're learning in this lab with your lab environment, or what you're learning in your lab environment, and you can translate that into the real world when you're working with physical NetApp filers. So we'll get there. So you can see it's got 4 network adapters by default. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's got 4 hard disk drives. So just to mention quickly, like what some of the hard disk drive does. So I know this last one is one that we'll be working with, this last hard drive, which it has 230.7 gig. And that's basically the hard drive that will contain all the simulated disk shelves that we'll be using. Again, you don't understand that, you can't relate to it yet, no problems. You will get it when we start explaining that. Okay, so what I'll do next is what the assumption I have behind this is you already have your network set up in your environment. So what I usually have, I'll show you. If I bring up command from the open up notepad. So what I usually have in my environment is I try to document everything as much as possible. And the reason for that is the behavior that you have in your lab. Always remember that behavior will follow you into the real world. That's important. So let's open this file. vSphere. Okay, here we go. So I usually just try to document what's going on. So in my own network, lab environment on a single workstation I'm using, I try to designate like what the different networks would be. So for example, so if I go on the file here, oh sorry, on the edit, and I go on the virtual network editors, you can see all these different um, network adapters that I have. So VMnet 1, VMnet 2, and I've already given each one of them, which network they belong to and what's the IP address range. VM network 0 will be breached, and that's what I'll be using for management. VMnet 1 be host only. I'll be using for VM traffic, storage traffic, vMotion traffic, because I've got ESX here also in the lab. I've got 6 and 7 will be NetApp cluster. So if you already have all that set up, in your environment, so what I'll do in my own environment, if I close this down, I'll just modify the network adapters to suit me, like to suit what I want in this environment. So if I go on the settings here, and okay, what do I want the first adapter to be? I want the first adapter to be breached, and that will be my management. So I change that and I say, because in a VMnet 0 is my breached adapter, I can actually just go breached and go connected directly to the physical network. And then I go to number 2, and that will probably be the one that I will use for NetApp cluster 1, and that's VMnet 6. So I changed that to VMnet 6. Again, that's all decided by me. The next one will probably be my other NetApp cluster network, which is VMnet 7. So I'll go with that, and I'll go custom VMnet 7. So there are some other networks that I need. Again, we'll talk about this as we go on. So so I can leave this one for now, or just give it another network, maybe make it preached also. And then what I'll do is, as time goes on, I will modify that. Now, what I'll advise you is, whatever adapters you're going to be using, add them right at this stage. So don't wait till after you've started. Just add them right now, whatever adapter you'll be using. So I'll just go next. Let's see if I've got some for NetApp cluster, 2 for NetApp cluster, 1 for management, maybe 2 for storage. So let me add, so that's 2 more. So that those 2 will be my storage network. So actually, if I go back to this one and I go storage traffic, so VMnet 3 and 4. So let me set this 2 for VMnet 3 and 4. My storage traffic, VMnet 3, VMnet 4. I also know I'll need another one for node management. So let me add another network adapter. And I'll just, let me call this bridged also. So one will be management of the cluster. One will be node management. VMnet 4, and this is bridged. So again, cluster management, NetApp cluster network, storage traffic network, node management, which is also bridged. So once you're sure that you have your network adapter set up correctly, just click OK, and then go ahead and start the VM. So one other thing that I need to mention to you before you actually go ahead and start the VM is, at this point, after you've done these modifications, this is the point for you. If you're going to be having a scenario that I mentioned here, where you'll be having 2 nodes in a cluster, this is the point where you clone this particular node. So now you've imported it, edited the hardware as you want, and before you go further, before you even start the NetApp system for the very first time, this is the time for you to clone it. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So if I go power, no, not power, sorry, manage, I want to clone. Just follow the wizard. I want to clone the current state of the virtual machine. Again, remember, this has to be done before you power it on. I want the full clone, the linked clone, and I want to call it NetApp 2. And finish. And then I'll pause the recording and I'll be back once that concludes. Okay, so the clone completed and it's done. So if I click close here, so now I have 2 NetApp nodes, so to speak, that I can use. So what I'll do is I'll power on one of them. And if you look at this, this is an exact clone of this. So basically, you don't have to modify all the adapters and stuff again. So let's power this on. Now here you have to be ready to press any key but the enter key once you power this on. Okay, so I did that. So if you look at the screen, it says hit enter to boot immediately. Don't hit enter. That's a no-no, because once you skip this, if you allow the system to boot fully, basically you have to trash this old VM and import a new one and do the whole process again. So don't be tempted to hit enter immediately. It says hit enter to boot immediately, or any other key for command prompt. So what I've done is I hit any other key apart from enter, and it's brought me into this screen called vloader. Okay, so a few things that we're going to do here. So one of the important things is, so we will talk more about this when we talk about if you're using VirtualBox rather than VMware. we'll touch more about this. So if I go, for example, printf, which is a command for showing in this environment. So printf, that's bootag.vm.run underscore vm tools. I present, okay, no, is it what I get wrong? Bootag vm, okay, yeah, I got bootag vm.rom. Well, there's nothing called rom, it's called run. So I go print bootag.vm.run with a hen underscore vm tools, and I get it true. So what that means is after the operating system is started, you want it to run VMware tools. Now we'll talk about this when we start demoing putting this on VirtualBox. If we're going to be using this on VirtualBox, you want to switch this to off, and the way to switch that off is to go to set env. So printf shows set env modifies. Printf shows set env modifies. So bootag.vm dot run underscore vm tools, and I can set that to false, and that will cost false. But now I'm using VMware, so I won't be setting that to false. So the first thing that you want to change in this environment is you want to change the serial number. So I can print the current serial number on this machine now. If I go printf bootag dot vm dot sim dot v def init. Okay, yeah, not this one. So again, we'll talk about this one later. So what this one is just showing us is showing us the current disk shelf spot. That's for another that's for another time. So I go print bootag, I think it's .nv ram .sysid, is it? Yeah, why is another one if I've forgotten that one? Print serial, is it? Yeah, so let me just have a quick look at this one, get the right command. Okay, here we go. That was what I missed. Okay, so print bootag dot nvram, which I thought I got right, dot sysid. Okay, yeah. For some reason, oh, okay, I can see. So I got boot AGL there instead of boot ARG, and then the next one I got boot AG without the B. So just make sure you get your spelling right and you'll be okay. Print env boot AG dot nv ram dot sysid. Enter. There we go, and that's the system ID. Now that's closely related to the serial number, which is printf sys underscore serial underscore num. And if I present that to the is that wrong? Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Printf sys underscore serial underscore number, and that will show me what the serial number is. And you can see that these two are related, only this one has a bit of dashes in front of that. So this is the point where I go back to my NetApp site, and basically I change the serial number to one of the serial numbers that are contained in this file. So again, I won't be opening that up, but basically once you have that serial number, you can replace it. So the way to use that to replace, I can go send env, and I can go bootag dot mvram.sysid equals to my serial number, sorry, my system ID, which may be 11111111, and then press enter, and that changes the system ID. And then I have to do the same for the serial number, which is set env sys underscore serial underscore number and then say equals to 1111111 dash 1 dash 1 and then press enter, and that changes that. So that's how you do it. So I won't be doing that in this situation because I will be doing that offline, but I won't be showing you that. So, but that's basically how you modify the serial number. And after you finish modifying the serial number, one other thing there's a few other things you can do in this environment. You can manipulate the memory usage and all the stuff like that. We will show you all that. As we go on in our demonstrations and in our explanations. So one other thing that could be useful for you is the one that I showed earlier, which is if I go print env dot put arg dot vm dot sim dot vdev init. So do I have the no again? It's just spelling. Just make sure you can spell right. But in IT, typing wrong could be disastrous. It could be really disastrous. People have got stories that they could tell you. Yeah. So basically, I've done printenv bootag.vm.sim.vdevinit. Now let me attempt to explain this really quickly, really quickly, because this video is getting longer than I want it to. So if I go here, so now what you have here is you have these two NetApp nodes that you want. So we're going to change the serial number of one of them, only for one of them. So what we're doing here, you only do it for one node. You don't need to do it for the second node because the second node will already have the original serial number, so there's no need to change it. But for one of the nodes, you have to change the serial number. Otherwise, bad things will happen later. You will get error messages later. So after changing the serial numbers, making sure both of them don't have the same serial number, you get the serial number from the license file that you download from NetApp. So the command that I use now, which is printf bootag.vm.sim.vdevinit, actually shows you what the shelves look like. So what happens in the real world, you have these two nodes, and then if you want if you want storage, the storage or the disks themselves or the drives, the SSD drives, they live in a disk shelf. So you have these disk shelves that will be connected. Again, we'll talk about all these connections. Just be patient. We can't learn everything in a day. No, Rome was not built in a day. We have to go little by little and we will get to our destinations. So you have all these disk shelves that contains all these different disks. And let's say somehow or another they are connected. So again, we're not talking cabling now. We'll get there when we get there. So all these randomly connected to all these disk shelves, they connected somehow. So yeah, we'll get there again. So let's say, so all these disk shelves are the ones that actually contain your disks. And that is what this simulator is trying to achieve. So basically, this is the configuration that sets what your disk shelves will be like. So go to my blog, david.okeode david.okeode.wordpress.com, and you get more information about this. I will be posting a blog. I will put up a blog post about this. So you can see this says 23 column 14 column 0. Now many people mention this in different articles online, but they never actually explain what that means. So 23, or the very first number, stands for the disk type. Excuse me. And the very next number after the column stands for the number of disks, while the last number stands for the disk shelf number, and then you have a comma and then it goes on and on. So what that means in this scenario is you have a disk shelf called disk shelf 0. So that's the last number here. Disk shelf 0 has 14 disks. So it has 14 disks. And those 14 disks, what is the disk type? Number 23, which basically stands for 1 GB fiber channel disk. So that's what that's standing for. So what that means is that on this particular node filer, we have two disk shelves that are connected. And those two disk shelves, so there's disk shelf 0 and disk shelf 1. Both of them are 14 disk each, making it 28 disk, and each disk on each shelf is 1 gig each. So that's what that's standing for. So when we talk about storage, we'll talk about how to expand that, how to modify that when we talk about that. This is just about setup. So you've done all that, and then the next thing you want to do is you can modify the storage at this point. So you can decide to do it now, or you can do it later when you boot up the simulator. In this case, we just leave this for now. So once you've finished all these initial modifications, the next thing you do is you type in the boot command, which will actually begin the boot process. So boot process starting, NetApp data on tap 8.3.2. There we go. Press Ctrl C for boot menu. I press Ctrl C for boot menu. And when that comes up, it's going to come up with a menu, a numbered menu for you to select from. And this is also important. So basically, one thing to note is that what we've done with the serial number modifications, you have to do that before proceeding. At the very first boot, you can't miss it. Because if you miss it, you may have to basically trash the old VM and just re-import a new one, because the pain of having to fix it may actually be more than the cost of just trashing the VM and just starting from scratch, basically. Just have something to drink here. Okay, so choose one of the following. Now you have 8 options. So you have the normal boot without etclc, change password, if you want to change password, clean configuration and initialize all this. That's the one we want at this point. So what we want is the very first time, after you've modified the serial number and everything, you want to clean all the existing configuration on the node, and you want to initialize all the existing disks on it, which is what we'll do. So we'll press number 4 and we'll press enter and get ready for a whole world of watching. Because what will happen is it's going to wipe all the existing configuration on the filer on the node. It's going to start all the disks. Basically, it's going to it's called zeroing all the disks, which is a concept we'll get to later, I promise. So this will zero all the disks, and then you can start working with your NetApp filer. So at this point again, when it starts the whole process, yeah. So it says zero disks, reset config, and install a new file system. Do I want to proceed? It just basically it's not even zero days reset config and install new system question mark. What am I supposed to answer to that? Yes or no? So I just press Y for yes and press enter. This will erase all the disks on all the data on the disks. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. That sounds more like a better question. So it says rebooting to finish the wipe config request. So the system will reboot itself, at which point the zeroing of the disks will begin. And then get ready to watch a lot of dots. So what I'll do is at this point again, I'll pause this recording, and then once it finishes, then I'll come back and then we'll proceed from there. So at this point, you can either press enter to make it immediate, or yeah, I can just press enter, or you can just leave it alone. It's gonna boot up by itself. Yep, wipe filer procedure requested, and it's gonna carry on. So at this point, just leave it alone. Let it do what you've instructed it to do. So once it finishes, you can carry on. I'll pause the recording now. So just wanted to show you what it looks like when it continues the process. So you can see all the zeroing going on. And if you're someone who enjoys watching white dots on the screen, just watch away. Again, I'll pause this and I'll save you that pain. I once had an instructor who said, I have to suffer through all this, so you all have to suffer through all this. You all have to watch the dot with me. But I won't put you to that pain. So here we are, it's saying the zeroing has completed, system initialization has completed. After that, I think this is probably the point where it's gonna reboot again. And after it reboots, we can basically log into a NetApp system. So the thing is, when it reboots this time around, just let it carry on. Okay, so what I have on the screen now, it's saying type yes to confirm and continue. So I'll just type yes to continue. So basically that's talking about the auto support. Okay, so that's finished now. And one of the first things that will happen after you enter yes to the auto support is you have to set up the management interface. So you can select one of the ports. Now the way that works in NetApp World is that the first port is usually called by the name E0A, then port P will be E0B, then port 3 will be E0C, and so on and so forth. So in this case, the very first port is what I want to use for the node management. So I'll call that E0A. So click in there. Now, there's something that you might face in your own lab environment also. So I've noticed this when I'm using the latest version of VMware Workstation, which is 12.1.0, build 3272444. That sometimes I do lose um, the keyboard input. So for example, I have the keyboard input within the VM, but I'm typing and nothing is responding until I go out and then come back in. So I won't bore you with all the details, but at least you have like a standard understanding of how to set up like the NetApp simulator. So in other demos that I'll be doing later, I'll be showing you how to take it from here on going forward. I also want you to watch out for the video that I'll be doing for people that want to use VirtualBox instead of VMware for their NetApp lab. And I do have something interesting to share about that because there is an advantage to using that, which I'll share with you when I get there. But I hope this has been helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next recording. Thanks very much. Bye.